Alright, I got 15 more minutes.
Oh, my goodness.
Cool. Alright, we're good.
Alright, we're checking this hive that was temporarily brought down from Topanga so that when...
So
people...
someone owns this, you're just
Yes.
fostering, and when they get back on their feet and everything, was their place burned?
No, it wasn't. The fires didn't reach Topanga, but there was a mandatory evacuation.
And I guess
so Sergio,
bees don't like smoke.
Right, so Sergio and his wife loaded his hive into the back of their car and they brought it down here knowing that they'd have a safe
In a
home.
situation of fire like that, if smoke got too close to the hive, would they all like split and maybe...
I think they would take off. I think they would recognize that their hive is in danger and they would fill their tummies with honey and leave with the queen and try and find a new
They
home.
would leave the queen.
But the thing of
So
it is...
queen can't fly?
The queen can fly, but she can't fly very far. Not initially, because she's been inside for years.
She's just out of shape.
She's terribly out of shape. So
Got
that's
that couch
why.
body.
Okay, that's a very good point you make. And we can do a visual demonstration right here. Is this too bright on the wall?
No, it's nice.
Okay, so one time, Joanne and I were we had rescued a swarm and we were trying to put it into this box. Let's say it wasn't this box, but a box like this.
Yes.
Well, I didn't do a very good job of shaking them, and they ended up on this wall right here instead of in here. They were all on the wall. And I said, oh no, how am I going to get them from there to here? Well, Joanne saw the queen. She said, Ian, the queen is right. There's the queen.
Whoa.
So I went to try.
That's like a good eye.
She's got a very good eye for spotting the queen.
I mean...
So I went to try and catch the queen, and the queen flew off, and I thought, oh no, not only did I mess up once, now I've messed up. I'm never going to see her again. But luckily for us, the queen doesn't fly very far. So a couple of minutes later, she came back. So this time I was prepared, and I took a little jar, and I slowly put it over, and I put some paper underneath the jar, and I was able to put her into the box. And when I told you about pheromones earlier, so the queen sends off some pheromones. And those bees that were here pretty soon smelled her pheromones here. So as long as the queen is in there, they all went in there.
Do you have reoccurring dreams that the queen gets away?
Even if I did, I now know that she doesn't fly very far, so she would only go to there. So I'll just finish up with if you see a swarm, which is a big cluster of bees outside, that means the queen has left.
I have seen that happen once.
Okay, she doesn't go very far from the hive, but the main point I want to tell you is they are not aggressive in that situation. I could go without a bee suit, and I could, if they were on a tree limb, I could put a box underneath. I don't suggest you do this at home. But you can just shake them without being in a bee suit, get them in a box. As long as the queen's there, everyone else will go in there.
Wow.
But the reason they cluster there is because the queen can't fly very far, she sends off scouts, and the scouts are flying around looking for somewhere. Rather than dragging her poor state around, they are just resting there while she builds up strength, and they try and find a new home. So that is what a swarm is, which is different than a colony. A colony has comb, and the queen has started laying eggs. A swarm doesn't have a home, it's looking for a home.
I think that's one of the things that we should not forget to talk about is lots of people are afraid of bees, some people are allergic to bees.
Good point. Okay.
So just in general, let's
good point.
clear the air about that.
What do we see here? So I'm seeing a lot of bees, but I'm not seeing a lot of brood in this one. I'm still a little, sorry.
Okay.
Can you see that in the light?
Yeah, looks like there's a lot of honey in there.
There's honey probably at the top. That's where they put the honey in. So I'm still, unless we see the queen or see some brood, I'm blowing on them gently because, oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. You see that? That's a queen cell. They made a queen cell. So
they're making it, but it's not covered over?
That means she's hatched out of there.
Oh, already.
But I don't know,
so
because these aren't my bees, I don't know if that's old or new.
So does that mean that there could potentially be two queens?
There would never be two queens. This is the
One of them
problem
will
with
fly away.
beekeeping, is that there are so many questions, there's never enough time. These are all very good questions. But no, there can never be two queens.
Well, luckily, any of these questions that we don't have time for, people could probably Google, and I wonder how many new beekeepers are going to be spawned from this video. But you also, we wanted to talk about two things before we finish this. Number one is, are bees something to be afraid of, and how to treat them with respect, and then also, what does it take to get into this?
Yes, all right. So I would say, not only would I say, but I please want people to know that bees are not dangerous. Although they are stinging insects, they are not mean stinging insects like other insects we could name. But we won't put, we will just call them WASPS. So look, there's a queen cell right there, everybody. Can you see that?
Yeah, definitely.
Looks like a peanut. So it looks like, let's see what it looks like on the other side. Is that open, or can you see? No, that's a sealed queen cell.
So does that mean that there's definitely a
It feels to me like they are making a new queen. So if we were to come back in a few days, we might see that would be open on one side, like that previous one I showed you. Man. And there would be a new queen. But anyway, let's get back to the safety. Oh, yeah. But there's some broods. So it's interesting. Babies. The previous queen has laid some brood, some baby bees, and they've turned one of them into a queen. So either she was getting old, or there was some reason they decided they needed a new. What's that?
Well, there was just one right on the hinge.
So bees are not
making me nervous.
Why? Is underneath?
Okay, he's good. She's good. I keep saying that.
Females. So
she's good.
What I would say to people about bees are really not interested in us. They are looking for sources of pollen and nectar. And so if a bee buzzes you, the best thing you can do is not swat at it. Because if you swat at it, it's going to think you're attacking it, and it might sting you. If you just walk away, it won't follow you because you don't have any pollen on you, probably. And so it will go on to the next flower. So please don't confuse bees and wasps. We really need bees in the environment. If you find a lot of bees coming out from a manhole cover in front of your house, let's say, then try and find someone like me in your neighborhood, a beekeeper, who will rescue them and find them a good home, because I know you don't necessarily want 10 or 20,000 bees in the middle of your garden party. But the funny thing about bees, people will call me and say, some bees just moved into the manhole cover in front of our house. And I will go and look. And it's very obvious by the number of bees that they've been there for years. The people who live there just didn't notice them, because bees are very good at just being very quiet about what they do. And they've never stung anybody, there's been no reason to bother them. So, that's the first thing. Well, there was another question. How do we get into beekeeping? People say to me, Ian, how much time does it take to be a beekeeper? I would say it takes about 12 hours a year. If you can give the bees 12 hours a year, in other words 1 hour a month, you can be a beekeeper. How about that?
That sounds easy.
Most people are not allergic to bee stings, and people also say, Ian, do you ever get stung? And if you ever meet a beekeeper who tells you he hasn't been stung, he's fibbing. Every beekeeper is going to get stung. So
if you're legit allergic to bees, probably shouldn't be a beekeeper. Yeah. But if you're not,
I mean, there's this thing called an EpiPen, and if you have one, you should always have an EpiPen handy if you're a beekeeper, because you don't know who might get stung. Now, the thing about that is also, here's what I'd say about that. Look, bees forage. I'm sorry, everybody. There's just so many facts that I'd like to share. Bees forage, in other words, fly for 2 miles that way, and 2 miles that way, and 2 miles that way. So, Scott might be coming to visit me. He might get stung by a bee that came from 2 miles away. Even if I have bees, my bees aren't necessarily doing any stinging that might happen here. You could get stung anywhere. I suppose the fact that I have a lot of bees means it's more likely that there are bees here. But you should have the EpiPen on hand just in case, because even if I didn't have bees, there could be someone else's bees that could sting somebody, and you never know who might be allergic. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Better safe than sorry.
A nice frame of empty comb.
It's a little bit of honey in there, right?
A little bit of honey. That's a little bit. Oh, if it's black and shiny, that's actually nectar. That's in the early stage. They haven't turned that into honey yet.
So they eat nectar or they eat honey?
Both.
So they eat the nectar and then they make honey.
They can turn it into the nectar. The nectar will ferment if they don't turn it into honey.
And what happens then?
Well, it has a limited shelf life. If they want to go to the 3,000-year shelf life, they turn it into honey at the top here and cap it. Then they don't have to worry about it for 3,000 years. You know that sell-by date on the food that you buy. So you can imagine they mark it up with one of those 3,000 years in the future. I'm just kidding. So I think we've covered a lot.
Yeah, we've covered a lot.
But I hope maybe you'll come back and we'll see how these girls did with their queen.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
So I will say to Sergio, whose bees these are, that he should probably consider leaving them here for a little while until we figure out what's going on. There's no point. We don't want to add extra stress to moving them. I think you'd be a very good candidate for a beekeeper because you seem very comfortable around bees, so that's good.
Yeah,
I think bees can detect that also. If you get agitated, they get agitated.
I love insects.
Who doesn't?
Whenever I see sometimes you'll see honeybees that seem to be struggling somewhere.
Yes.
And you can give them a little water.
The fact is, they only have a very short life, so if they're struggling, it could possibly be they're just at the end of their life. I mean, bees are being born and dying in massive numbers every day because that's just the way they are. They work very, very hard. Here's another little fact for you folks at home, if you like honey. It takes 1 million bee visits. In other words, it takes one bee 1 million trips to a flower, or 1 million bees 1 trip to a flower to make a teaspoon of honey.
That's crazy.
That's a lot of work to make 1 teaspoon of honey. So they work very, very hard during their 30 days, and they just get pooped out, So if you see them struggling, they just might be pooped.
It doesn't make sense that they would actually have that much honey then. I mean, but how many trips do they do in their life?
That's a good question, but there are a lot of bees.
Yes.
So there are probably, in my hives, I don't know if you can see over here. Do you want to look at Sarita's hive? So there are probably 30,000 bees here.
Wow.
30,000 bees here. That's 60,000 bees. So
they
can do a lot of flower visits, 60,000 bees, even if they're turning around every 30 days.
Wow.
And you know what? I have named every one of them.
Every bee?
I know every bee by name.
Oh.
Do you believe me?
You just count their stripes?
Do you believe that I know all their names? Or might I be joking again?
I don't believe you, but maybe.
Good call. Good call. Because the thing is, after 30 days I have to rename them all again. It's exhausting.
Could name them all George.
Well, but they're females.
Oh, that's right. Georgina.
Georgina would be. I do try and name the queen.
I know they're all females, but I can't seem to.
You can't seem to. Yeah, I know. It's tough because this is a matriarchy.
Yes.
So I would say that's something we should support just there alone, don't you think?
Yeah.
So when people say anything about the sexes, we should point to the bees and say, here's a good example of how
they seem to be
girls do it.
They're very organized. They seem to have it.
They're good drivers. Oh, just kidding. Just kidding, ladies. Don't write. They're very good flyers. And they're very easy to get along with. So as you can see, I've barely used any smoke, Scott.
Yeah. You can smell it in the air a little bit, but you definitely don't see it.
They are not agitated. They are not acting in a way that says, oh, we think there's a fire coming. So this is tons of fun. Well, at least I think it's tons of fun. So I realized I had moved from... Oh, you wanted me to say how I started this, right?
Yeah.
Time for that?
Yeah, we've got a few more minutes left of video.
Okay. So, Scott knows, but you folks might not know, I'm a gardener as well. So one day, about 4 years ago, I was in the front garden looking at the plants. It was in the spring, so things were blooming. Hello. And this young couple came by and they said, oh, your garden looks great. I said, well, thank you, but, there should be more bees. I think I can count the number of bees on one hand. There really should be bees all over the garden. I don't know what's going on. This is when people were starting to notice colony collapse, they called it, and the vanishing of the bees.
Yeah.
So this young woman said, well, I've got a friend who's got some bees that need a home. Would you be interested? I said, hook me up. So about a week later, he showed up with, I think it was this box right here, and we became beekeepers. And
wow.
That's how it started.
You didn't have to take a course online, get a certificate?
Didn't. It's been just learning by doing.
And that was kind of silly, but as far as this kind of a more serious question, yes. Permits, you don't need to tell anybody, you
do. I highly recommend it. So it has been legal in the city of Santa Monica for a few years now. Santa Monica was did I say Santa Monica?
Yes.
Santa Monica was ahead of Los Angeles, so it became legal in
So we're in Venice, which is technically Los Angeles.
So it is now legal in...
Citywide.
City of Los Angeles. It might even be the county, but certainly the city of Los Angeles.
But if you're in the amoeba of Los Angeles, so even in an urban environment, if...
Yes, it is legal in the city of Los Angeles.
So if you have
But, here's what I was saying. There is a registration process, and it's a good idea to register the hive with the county. The county, what's the term? It is a county registration, anyway. And the reason to do that is, then they know who's got bees and who doesn't. And if they are going to do any spraying, because there are other pests that they have in the past sprayed for fruit fly, they will notify me and say, hey Ian, we know you're a beekeeper, you might want to cover your bees because we're going to be spraying pesticides, and I certainly would want to know if that was going to happen. But if they didn't know I was a beekeeper, they wouldn't tell me, and my bees could be harmed by something like that. So that's a very good reason to be registered, and it's very inexpensive. It costs $10 a year for 2 hives. The fostering these are not my hives, as we've discussed. They're going to be gone in a couple of weeks or whenever, a couple of months, but I am a registered beekeeper.
Cool.
I think it's a good idea. So, all right, we're going to cover these guys up.
Yep. We're pretty much out of space, but yeah. Put it on up.
So I'm going to have to probably go from the other way because of this one right here. So if you you can help me with your whichever hand is free.
I got one.
And if you see any on the end here, you can sort of brush them out of the way.
All right.
But there is something called bee space between here and here, so that there should be room for them not to get brushed. So I just go slowly.
Oh, yep. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. He flew out. She flew out.
So you see they're going down as I move it. They're smart little creatures. They've been doing this for. And oh look, we got nobody. Come on, that one there. Can you just brush? There we go. Bye bye.
She goes.
Bingo. No casualties. We love that.
Perfect.
So we did a little inspection. Thank you very much. That's my iconic bee brush. With your feet is. If it's time for one last thing.
Yep, we got time for one last thing.
It does need a little bit of space. It isn't something that you want to hide in a corner that's inaccessible, because I hope that if you start beekeeping, you will really get into it and enjoy it and want to go and see those bees. And so they want to be in a place that's easily accessible, because the more difficult it is, the less likely you are to deal with them. And they do need to be checked out. They're like, not quite pets, but it's like livestock. It needs to be taken care of. All right, I hope everybody had fun. That's all I'm going to say.
This was a honeybee rescue. Thank you, Ian.
Welcome, Scott and everybody.
All right, you guys. That was a longer video than I expected, but I think it was jam-packed full of awesome shots and facts and anecdotes and jokes. And we got to meet Ian and Joanne. We got to see his guinea pig setup also at the beginning. You know, that's a great thing about YouTube, is I can put up a huge big video, and if people want to scroll through, skip ahead, go back and forth, and pause it and come back later, they can do that. We're gonna jump out of this suit. Thank you, Ian.
Dude, beekeeping handshake.
Beekeeping fist bump.
Yes, there it is.
All right. Look, you guys, rescue honey. So the circles that have the white on them, that means it's been capped?
That is all capped honey.
Ooh. So there's wax, and you just eat the wax. You just spoon. Just take a little spoonful.
There's a little spoon for you. They just. I did about 50-50. Some people, like me, love.
I can handle the wax. So do I. I just scoop it out. It's like perfect in there. I just scoop like a little.
Just, yeah,
like that.
Tiny little piece,
oh
a little bigger. Gosh. Yeah, start with that.
Ooh. All right. This is rescue honey. All right. Oh my god. You know, really, the wax it's very thin.
Yeah. I mean, Joanne is not crazy about it. It sticks in her teeth. Doesn't seem to stick in my teeth. And if you spread it on toast, with or without butter,
there's the wax.
It's just like a piece of crust on the toast.
Yeah.
But how's the taste?
It's crazy good.
Is that the best honey you've had all day?
It's the best honey it's the best honey I've had all year. The only honey I've had. But I've been holding out for the real stuff.
Have a little bit more.
I'm going to do a little bit more with the clean side.
No, you don't need heat. Here's the thing. You remember how I said it lasts for 3,000 years? It's also antibacterial. So you can double dip.
Interesting.
It's completely self-cleaning.
Last one.
It's the greatest stuff. Double dip. That's yours anyway. So
this whole thing?
That whole thing is for you. I know.
Oh my gosh. All right.
How happy are you?
Now I'm really happy. I'm going to share it. And you said it'll last forever.
Pretty much forever.
Well, as long as I can stretch it out.
About
1,000 years.
2,000 years.
Well, but you need a tomb.
You better not still have that in 2,000 years. I'm hoping you're going to go through it in about 2 weeks.
Oh yeah. Oh man, that is so good. Thank you, Ian. And this little bit is for Saskia?
That's for Saskia.
Oh
I don't
man,
know how much she loves it. I can't. Oh,
this is plenty to give someone taste.
Isn't it? That's a great little taste there. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the wax. It's kind of like chewing gum.
The first one is free.
Yeah. So do you have jars of this? Do you make your
here's the thing.
Private label?
Here's the thing. I do have a little label, but I've decided to get away from crushing and straining, which is what people do to extract the honey. It's much easier and faster for me to just cut a circle of comb like that and put it in a container, and I'm encouraging people to enjoy it.
Try it like that, yeah.
It's faster, it's easier.
I'm just gonna keep on chewing.
Keep chewing it and then spit it out. It's totally organic. It'll go back into nature. We put it in the compost bin.
Awesome.
It's totally healthy. If you eat it, it's not going to gum up your insides. But I like to encourage people to get used to it. And as I say, it's 50-50 right now, but I think we're moving towards 60-40. People are going to say, give me honeycomb. Anybody who's already had honeycomb and loves it gets very excited when I say I've got honeycomb. That's the way real being.
Could you probably just wrap it in like a piece of wax paper and hand it out? You wouldn't?
You could, except it does tend to... The bees are very good at storing it so that it doesn't spill out, but once we cut the comb, then we've broken that cell.
It's probably all sticky. It's nice to keep it in something.
It is. So I found these nice little containers.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Yeah, I like it. Well, thank you very much.
What is that? The beekeeping handshake.
Yeah, because otherwise you got sticky fingers.
So Sarita, who lives next door, you've heard us mention Sarita. She says she can always tell when I've been checking the bees. She says the honey bear's been over there because the gate latch is a little bit sticky. So she says the honey bear's been over here.
Sticky gate latch.
Yeah.
Well, this was a treat. This is really awesome.
You're welcome
Thank you for
anytime,
inviting
Scott.
me. Thank you. Well, I will definitely come back because there's a lot of questions that need to be answered.
There will be more questions, yes. So people, if they have questions, should ask Scott, and he will ask me, and we'll get all your questions answered.
All right. Thank you, Ian. Ian was reminding me that this is a backyard bee rescue. And so he's rescued these hives, and even though we are enjoying some of their honey, the main purpose was to save these bees and to keep them safe and to allow their hive to thrive. So if he's taking honey, he's only taking a small amount. He told me, he wanted to explain to me that he's only taking much less than what they need, much less than half of what their reserve honey would be. and in each of the boards they already have lots of extra honey. So this would be in addition to that. So this was really exciting to me, and I'm grateful for Ian and Joanne to invite me into their home and show me this process. This right here is rescue honey. This is the result of someone stepping up and learning about something and making a difference in their local environment, and just so happened to get something really sweet at the end of it all. The cycle continues.